In life we chase everything except what matters. We sprint toward goals, then move the finish line. We live to work, forgetting what we're working for. I have lived both extremes, monk and CEO, homeless and financially free, fired and building billion-dollar companies, and along the way, a handful of advice quietly changed how I saw the game and how I lived my life. It might do the same for you too. Let's get into it. Here's the first life-changing advice I got. The fastest way to your dream job is to slow down and master the one you already have. You can't leap into the next role by sleepwalking through the current one. Years ago, I was sitting through my annual review, and my boss asked me about my long-term plans. And I told her I wanted to rise up to a C-level position someday, to serve, to lead, to have a broader impact. And I asked her how to get there because she was the president of the company. She said 3 words that changed everything. Focus on today. That was it. I was a little surprised, a little humbled. No 5-year plan, no networking roadmap. Her advice was simple, but stellar. Be great exactly where your feet are. But most of us don't focus on that. We treat our current job like a waiting room, don't we? The goal is always to catch the next train. How do you become more valuable in the future if you're not creating value right now? So here are a few things you can try. Solve what others ignore. Start small. What are the things your team needs help on? What irritates your boss? Pick one thing. Fix one thing. Do it quietly. Do it thoughtfully. Do it skillfully. Use artificial intelligence, use emotional intelligence, use all the intelligence you have, but use it here. Use it now at your current job, because your next role won't come from your resume. It'll come from your reputation. Master what's in front of you, in your present. The future has a way of noticing that. Second advice, not everything that's visible is valuable. Being rich in money but poor in time isn't prosperity, it's prison. I got this advice from a CEO who was running a multi-billion-dollar company. He wasn't a tech company. He was already richer than his younger self would have ever imagined. So I kept asking him, when was he planning to slow down? But he wanted more. He wanted the big B, billions. Then one day, the company stumbled, and billions of dollars just evaporated overnight. If he had cashed out before, he could have walked away with hundreds of millions of dollars. But instead, he walked away with almost nothing. Months later, we met for drinks, and he shared something that was heartbreaking. He said, everyone hates me now. I've lost all my friends, except the 2 I had in college. My advice to you, Sandeep, once you have what you need, stop chasing for more. He was right. If you've already built the life you like, stop mortgaging it for a bigger one. What's the point of winning if it costs you everyone who mattered? We chase what we see because everyone else can see it too, right? Our bank balance, our fancy cars, our job titles. Easy to count, easy to flex. That's why we all fall for it. A couple of years ago, Deloitte did an interesting study. And they found that 70% of high earners report feeling time-starved. 7 out of 10. You may end up with success and money, but that won't buy you time or freedom if you don't make a conscious choice to prioritize those ideas. And here's something worth trying. Really, ask yourself 3 questions. Number 1, how much time do I spend with those I love? Number 2, how often do I laugh? With my spouse, with my kids, with my boyfriend, my girlfriend. Number 3, how many days a week do I stop to feel gratitude and joy? Those are good questions to ask. The third advice came to me through a painful experience. Even the right words can blow up relationships if you say them at the wrong time. Way back when I served as the CEO of a great tech firm, I used to think good feedback meant precision, clarity, efficiency. So I would drop dozens and dozens of comments on our board deck that our team was working on over the weekend. In my head, I was being helpful, strategic, and thoughtful. But to the team, It felt like an ambush. One day, my CFO cornered me, like pulled me aside in front of the elevator, and he said, when you send so many comments, I appreciate it, it's very helpful, but sometimes it feels like we've already lost before the game even began. And I just looked at him and I said, wow, you're absolutely right. I wish someone had told me this before, because I thought I was coaching. But coaching doesn't work when it's dropped like a grenade and Google Slides 48 hours before high-stakes meeting. And this is the challenge of our time for all of us. As more and more teams get spread out in different locations, it's harder to provide feedback that lands the way you intended. And the truth is, this is not just a workplace issue, right? It's a human challenge. We do the same thing to our spouse, kids, friends, and co-founders. We try to be helpful, but when feedback lacks context, tone, timing, it doesn't feel like support, does it? It feels like criticism. And that's the balance we all have to strike. Feedback is like medicine. It only works when delivered in the right dose, at the right time, through the right system. People don't want to be judged. They want to be seen. They want to know that their efforts mattered, that they mattered, even if the results may miss the mark. That's why I now think about building what I call a trust loop before I give feedback. I'm still not good at it. I'm constantly working on it, and I still make mistakes. But it's a simple 5-step framework that helps ensure feedback lands as intended, constructive, not critical. First, say it in person or face-to-face. Don't coach through comments or Slack threads. There's no replacement for human connection. Written comments, no matter how carefully worded, can't replicate tone and empathy and nuance. Second step, affirm. Start with what's working, not just as a tactic. Like, don't do what's known in business as the shit sandwich, where you start with good, then you insert all the bad stuff, and end with something good again. No, that's not what I'm talking about. This is about giving real, specific recognition for effort and progress. Third step, clarify. Ask questions before offering solutions. Understand what's behind the issue. Why is it stuck? And what's happening from their perspective. Feedback from awareness is far more effective than feedback from assumption. Fourth, give feedback in private, not in public. Feedback doesn't need a stage. It needs a soft landing. Public corrections rarely lead to growth. They lead to embarrassment, shutdown, resentment. Why do that? And fifth, have a real conversation, not a commentary. Sit down or go for a walk. Have a real talk. Make it safe to have a dialogue, not a monologue. I've learned one thing after spending decades in C-level positions. People don't change because they are corrected. They change because they feel understood. When they feel safe, they open up. When they feel judged, they shut down. So always remember, correction without connection will always sound like rejection. The fourth advice I got was this: the growth mindset makes us successful, but it can also make us restless. There was a time in Mumbai when I was homeless. I was lost. So when I had the opportunity to restart my life in Boston and in New York, I of course poured every waking moment in my 20s and 30s into working and learning and building my career. It made sense, right? The plan was simple: grind now, enjoy later. But now when I look back, I realize what was actually happening. It was grind now and grind later, because I got really lucky. And by my late 30s, I had hit my number. I finally had financial freedom. But my nervous system hadn't accepted it, so I kept going. Maybe it was the scarcity mentality from my childhood, who knows? But I remember feeling like I was an unfinished work of art that would expire before it was finished. I was still a hamster, just on a different wheel. The wheel gets shinier and it spins faster, and we just keep going on. We get there and then we move the goalpost. The problem here isn't ambition. It's this idea that fulfillment is one more achievement away. That one last hit, that one last score, and then I'll ride into the sunset. But there's nothing in that future that will finally fix it all. Psychologist Kristen Neff calls it lack of self-compassion. When our self-worth depends on being superior, it becomes fragile. And we stay stuck on this treadmill of endless comparison. That sounds familiar to me. Of course, you should never stop striving to become better. That's not the solution. But you also need to start enjoying the idea of being who you are in parallel, to find that balance between being and becoming. Here are 3 questions to ask yourself. Perhaps every week. What did I learn? It's about growth. What did I improve? It's about others. And the most important question, what did I smile about today? And now for the last advice I received. When your plans fall apart, curiosity is the only compass that still works. My music teacher, a great maestro, changed how I thought about curiosity versus certainty. I remember sitting down for a lesson one of those days, and he was relaxing on his couch, and I was sitting in front of him, and I was all like warmed up, ready to nail whatever comes my way. But he stopped me cold and he asked me, "What is your instrument telling you today?" It wasn't some composition he was talking about, not some technique. He was teaching me how to listen, how to be curious about my own instrument, about my own ideas, my own instinct, to give up on certainty in favor of curiosity. That was a phenomenal advice, because most of us think success requires a master plan, right? A 5-year strategy with mapped out milestones, and you gotta write all the details down and you gotta visualize it every day. All of that is important. I'm not downplaying any of it, but the best opportunities don't announce themselves. They surprise us. They show up as some weird side project, or a random conversation, or an accidental interaction from the left field that we never expected. Life isn't a chessboard. There are no guaranteed moves. It's closer to surfing. You don't control the waves. You may have a perfect plan to surf, but when the wind starts shifting and the waves disappear, the plan isn't gonna matter. All you can do is stay curious, stay open, stay tuned in, and wait for the next wave. Curiosity is like a whisper. Our mind has to be quiet enough to hear its voice. So, each week, ask yourself, what am I curious about? Then follow up on that thread. Read one article outside of your field, or ask that one question you haven't asked before, or even try one project that doesn't have a clear ROI. Let randomness surprise you. Remember, the best opportunities don't knock. They vanish as soon as they appear, but curiosity knows where to find them. If you found this video helpful, hey, please subscribe. Also, watch the video about 7 things that you can stop doing in order to find financial freedom and fulfillment. I appreciate all your time, all the comments, all the love. Thank you, and I love you.